24/7 in my feelings. Avril, at 7 years old, was writing scripts, short stories, and lyrics. She continues to explore her thoughts, feelings, and actions through writing and uses it as a self-analysis tool. Inspired by everyday situations, movement, and form, her work aims to use all of our senses to create an immersive experience. Avril is also the founder of Intra Muse Collective, a place where creative minds collaborate. We're going to be talking to Avril today about her latest work, a poetic exploration into life's random situations, a bird's eye view of scenarios, and an intrinsic perspective on experiences. Words for moods and occasions. 24/7. Avril, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Dami. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. We have a lot to talk about. Firstly, please introduce yourself. How would you describe and how do you see yourself?
Okay, so my name is Avril. I am a writer, I am a poet, and I'm a fun-loving child.
That's good. And some of that comes out through your work. So before the book starts, Avril's written an
epilogue?
Yeah, an epilogue. It says, "For those who allow their mind to wander, whose imagination is limitless, for those who make sure love is a verb reflecting through their efforts and actions, for those who protect their peace and energy by any means necessary." Okay. Why? Why is that important? Why are those values important to your work?
It's important because I feel as you get older, you lose the sense of magic and you lose just the general enjoyment of things. Everything now, from my perspective, is so transactional.
Mhm.
Whereas you watch kids play and it's just, oh, we're going to do this today. And their minds are just limitless. And I think that's something that we shouldn't lose within ourselves.
Okay.
There's so many things going on in the world and a lot more negative as the news would let you have or see. And I feel like sometimes if we just took a step back and just led with love, and I don't mean you need to go around kissing everyone and don't be kissing people without their permission, please. But I just mean just generally how we interact with one another. If you see someone struggling, offer to help. That's showing love.
Yeah.
If you see someone crying, to be like, "Oh, you're right. Can I get you?" Just little small acts of kindness just go such a long way. And love is a verb. It's a doing word. You show love. You act with love. Everyone's like, "Oh, I love this and I love that." If you're not doing the action, baby, it doesn't count.
Okay.
It doesn't count. And please protect your peace. Not every day wahala. Sometimes chill out. Zen the F out. If you dabble in 420, do that. If you like to read a book, do that. Just find your peace, protect your energy, which I also think helps you to show love because you're giving from a pot that's full rather than empty.
Would you say that? So I know someone called Mikel Amin. He came up with this term love service. He says everyone should have, not strictly speaking, a profession, but something that they do which they love that they can use to translate that love into the world. Would you say that writing is your love service or that poetry is your love service? Is this work 24/7 your love service?
Potentially.
Yeah.
Potentially, until I release something even better.
Okay.
I feel, potentially this is my love service.
Yeah, but the practice of doing this,
Yeah,
Okay.
I like that.
Okay. So let's jump right into the poetry.
Okay.
The fourth poem here is called He Wants, I Want. And it is about, well, reading it, it looks to be about your thoughts about kind of the differing ambitions and aims and values and practice of two different people. So, and it's a really good poem, by the way. The question I want to ask you about it is, do you think that there is this difference? You've kind of spoken and alluded to about the differences between men and women in relationships sometimes, or not necessarily in relationships. Do you think it's due to people being at different stages of their lives? Do you think it's due to people having different personalities? Or do you think it's just due to like a myriad of factors in that scenario?
I think there's a myriad of factors that contribute
Mm-hmm.
to people's mindset and how people act within relationships. So we've got this notion that, well, I don't know if everyone goes by this notion, but you need to find out what you are, what your label is within your current situation. So it's not a relationship,
Right.
but it's not anything.
Right.
So it's getting to that point that, oh, what are we?
Mm-hmm.
That question. And I think I was writing this from point of view of, we're doing all this stuff. What are we?
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I want, but from what I can see, it doesn't match up with what you want.
Okay.
So, and this transaction, although it's benefiting us whilst we're in it together,
Mm-hmm.
separately, our individual needs might not be being met.
Okay.
Because what our expectations are very different. So you can be in a relationship with someone and you're thinking, yeah, I speak to them every day, life is good, and the other person's thinking, yeah, I speak to them every day, but that's because at the end of the night I'm gonna bust them up. That's it. As simple as. So, and some persons run off thinking, oh yeah, we're gonna have kids, you've planned a wedding, you've planned your, and I think it's in there that, oh, I want a mortgage, I want like family dinners and everything. But you just want the cookies and then run. So
right, yeah, you said matrimony, kids, and a mortgage, yeah.
Yeah, so I think there's so many factors, but also just making sure that you're both on the same page.
Right.
And if you're that close to catching feelings, run.
Okay.
If you know they're not on the same page, you run.
Okay.
Protect your energy. Because
okay. Do you think that, because I think this is a really interesting subject because of what is happening in our community at the moment. So there are lots of conversations about relationships and dating, like lots of influencers talking about this. People now, more people going to therapy because they have things they want to work on. You know, kind of a discourse about cheating and priorities. Do you think that there's a fundamental gap between the priorities of men and women or not? Because to be in this situation, and I'm assuming the writing came from personal experience. How does that feel? Like, how do you think about being in that situation? Do you think that it's because you're different people? Do you think that there's something that can be done to kind of bridge the gap?
I think something can be done to bridge the gap, but both people's mindset needs to be pretty much at the same place at the same time. And there's this notion, and I never thought of it like that. Shout out to my college teacher who said this, that we have multiple soulmates in our lives.
Right.
Because your mind and you yourself are constantly evolving.
Right.
So the person that you're in love with at 16 may not necessarily be the person that you're in love with at 24, because you are constantly evolving and your needs are constantly changing. So as such, to go back to your question, I feel like the bridge can be linked, but you need to find someone who is in a very similar headspace to you at the time. Not someone who's trying to live their baby boy or baby girl lifestyle. Not someone who's still at the age of, you find people who are still hustling, so they don't have time for anything else.
Right.
And that's not a bad thing, but just know that you might be pouring all this effort into them and you might not be seeing the rewards because their mindset isn't on, I want to settle down. So definitely everyone go out, do the work. If it's therapy that you need, if it's that you need to understand your love languages, etc. But also understand that the person that you want to pour into may not be at a stage to receive all the pouring or to even reciprocate.
Right.
And it doesn't make them a bad person and it doesn't make you a bad person. You guys may need to come get away from each other to come back, and then you might be in the best place. or maybe it's just
Well, you know how the discourse is around men. I remember seeing a tweet a few weeks ago that said men are not supposed to. They said men are not supposed to look for relationships. They're supposed to, end up kind of being with someone and then start to enjoy it. You know, how sometimes men think about these things a bit differently. And then there was a kind of conversation around that. And like, I think that it's true that you can kind of create that situation for yourself. So you can maybe not have the intention and then kind of find yourself there. And then you can also go the other way. You can, you could look at somebody and be like, I have, an intention to move forward together and start planning, and then discover that, this person, maybe there's something not quite right there, that, so I think it's interesting that we have that kind of interesting relationship. But a lot of this is quite, so I'm really excited about the fact that you're really courageous with the poetry here. And as you say, that was from personal experience. You haven't shied away from being honest about your life and about your experiences. So can you talk about that? Can you talk about what it was like for you to use your personal romantic experiences and bring them out virtually into the public? Like, what is that like? And was it difficult for you to be courageous about being erotic?
Okay, so just generally about books. Once I said I'd done it, I don't think I've ever felt so exposed in my life. And I've had a child walk in on me while I'm using the toilet. So this was a lot more, I felt a lot more naked than I've ever been. But I think it's because you're allowing people into your mind, into the way you think and your psyche, and it's a bit, and then you're allowing them to judge you on it. Whereas what's in my mind, I can only just keep it to myself. Regarding yes, that was a very personal experience, but it's also, I think eroticism and lust needs to be explored in more than just a visual aspect.
Okay.
So when you're writing, and I've read, growing up, you read some books and you're like, this doesn't sound great, or I can't relate to what I'm reading.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes when people describe lust or eroticism, there's a build-up, but the build-up doesn't quite get you there. Yeah. And then the release, like, you just feel a bit dissatisfied. And yes was exploring within yourself how you feel about being desired and desiring, and then how you act on it. So yes, for me, although it is a personal poem, it's also a poem that I think most people can feel like, oh, I felt this.
Yeah.
And you can feel it in so many different ways. I think people also attribute lust and lusting just to sexual experiences, which I don't think it is. I think it's a broader scope. You can lust for something not sexual at all.
Lust is about desire.
Yeah. And some people desire silk clothing, and it's because it makes you feel a certain way. Some people lust after their own pleasure, and that's just, it's not purely sexual. It can be divine. It can be freeing. And it's just more than what the dictionary explains it to be, I'd say. And that's why I like yes. It's very a bit here, allowing you to explore within yourself what your yes is.
It's like giving permission.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, I would like this experience. Yes. That's quite empowering. There's a film, Yes Man. Is that Jim Carrey?
Yeah.
No, it was Yes Man? Yeah. I think so. It's about allowing yourself to kind of have those experiences. You said something really interesting about lust needing to be explored in more than just from the visual aspect. And I think that's really true. My thing is that I think a lot of us haven't been trained to sit down and kind of consider what they want, kind of without the influence of even friends, music, television, movies, what do I want? What might be a sexual experience for me? I have a friend who told me that his father, he spoke to his father in detail about his sexual experiences. So in detail, and his father's, and then he said, yeah, I just told him, and he was like, okay, yeah, and then he was like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, for a second that was strange, and then I was like, well, most people don't have that. And then his father, from a position of, someone who's more experienced, and also from somebody who's talking to him from a position of love, can then say, okay, here's my advice about how you do X, Y, and Z. I thought that was really interesting. I think this is why I like kind of really introspective considerations about our bodies, our sexual experiences as well.
It's an important discourse to have, and especially if you come from a very conservative family and you don't have an outlet, and then the only people you can talk to are your friends who are also trying to figure it out.
Right, like watching TV, I'm like, oh, that's how they do it on TV, so I'm going to try that.
Which TV is a lie, people. I don't. I've never seen anyone on TV in labour for more than 5 minutes.
Right.
I used to think, oh, you get pregnant, when it comes to the baby just flies out. That's not the truth. So I think you need to have this discourse, and I feel like we're getting into a time where, obviously, if we're going to have kids, hopefully we will have that discussion more openly than maybe our parents had with us, and not just the don't get pregnant or don't bring home a child. Right. So but as I say, it's the conversation that matters, and allowing yourself to ask, like, what is it I actually want? What is it I desire? What is it I require from this situation? Take a step back and allow yourself.
Tell me about what is freedom.
What is freedom?
Yes. About the poem?
Okay.
What was the process of writing it about, and what are your thoughts on freedom in general?
Okay, so what is freedom? And every time I think of this, I just think of Jaden and Willow Smith. So I remember them growing up, and there was always backlash for the way Will and Jaden were raising them. And
in the public eye?
Yeah, in the public eye. And just, obviously, Jaden was allowed to wear dresses.
Okay.
Willow cut her hair. Like, it was just, and for a lot of people, and I'm going to say a lot of Black people, who were the ones that I could see judging, it was like, what is this deviant behaviour? This is not what we do. And I'm thinking, they are children,
right.
number one. And how often do you get to see free Black children? And I don't mean free as in, they're being incarcerated. I mean free to express themselves. There was no pressuring them that, your parents are this, so you need to act like this. Like, the way they were raised, especially in the public eye, but there was nothing limiting them, which is what I liked. I used to defend those children like they were my own at some point. So every time I think of what is freedom, and especially from the point of view of being Black, to me, it's to be allowed to express yourself without anyone going, that's not what Black people do. Or without the judgment of, you can't do that because you're representing a whole culture or a whole race, which is just not my problem. I didn't ask to represent a whole race. It's just by luck that I was born Black. I could have been born white. You wouldn't be then telling me that I can't do this, would you? So freedom to me, expressing yourself the way you want, and also not having to care about the judgment of others. And I feel like a lot of the time judgment comes because other people haven't been allowed to express themselves freely. That's it. You're just upset because I'm living my life the way I want, and you haven't been given the opportunity to.
Okay, valid. However, this was my issue. I don't think that being free means being free from others' reactions. So, you're free to make a choice, you're free to do an action, but why should you be free from how others respond to it? That's my question. Because in the poem, you said to be free from judgment, but instead of saying, instead of being in a position where you do something and people don't judge you for it, I think freedom is you do something and people judge you for it, but it doesn't matter because you're doing it freely. What do you think about that?
I think you make a valid point.
Mm.
And but I also feel like sometimes people are judging and they have no right to judge. So
Okay.
it's I have this thing that if you're not hurting anyone and every party in within what you're doing, consensual agreement, etc., what is my business? I have no business. And I feel like people want to have a moral high ground.
Right.
And that is where the judgment comes from. But no one asked you. No one actually asked you. So there's a lot of people who don't do things because of the judgment.
That's true.
And if there was just, if I could just tell one person today, if you come out today, no one's going to judge you. And they're now living their truth. I would love to say that, because your sexuality or how you classify yourself or your gender, whatever, it's no one else's business. So why is anyone judging you on that? Why don't you judge them on their character?
Martin Luther King.
Yeah. This is it. Like, why am I judging you for the clothes you're wearing? Because you could not be wearing those clothes and be naked, and you could still be an asshole. I will judge you on what you show me about your character and your personality. Other than that, everything else that you do, it's none of my business.
So judgment should be character based.
Yeah.
So we should be free to judge people on character, not on superficial things.
No, not on superficial, or things that essentially don't affect our lives in any way. I say character because character is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will judge you on your character because that will determine whether I can trust you with £100. That you said, oh, I need £100 to do this. I'm gonna judge you on your character and what I've seen of you. Yeah, but it's not your clothes. Like, I'm not giving money to your clothes. Right. Okay. So in the same way, we judge people on their characters all the time. Yeah. Child-minded, looking after your kids. Yeah. If they're a criminal, you're unlikely to let them look after your children. Yes or no? So I think character is so much more important than what someone's wearing physically or how they identify. On the grand scheme of things, it's your character that carries you.
Okay, but going back to the poem, the word freedom, to me, it means, like, I look at it from a philosophical... philosophical. Yes. I look at freedom from a philosophical... I look at freedom from a philosophical point of view. So freedom is agency, it's opportunity, it's choice, and so on and so on. So I see freedom as like something that comes from like the human potential, like on an energy basis, right? So could something be said for like high energy people having more freedom because, you know, they're able to do more and maybe able to kind of brush off any negative consequences or something like that? Maybe. Okay.
Maybe, but it's also a mindset.
To be free is a mindset.
It's a mindset. It's a mindset, but it's also more than just a mindset, which I think...
Right. Yeah. Because so...
You can be free monetarily.
Right. Yeah? Okay.
But in your mind, you could be in bondage.
Right.
And that is... Like, there are rich people who can't spend their money. And why can't they spend their money? Because they're afraid of being broke. So you're not free.
Right.
So... It's a mindset, but it's more than just a mindset. And if you're free within yourself, there are poor people who are free because they know it's out of my control. If I eat today, I don't eat today.
Okay. So it's almost about being stoic as well. It's also about not being too attached to the consequences of, you know, other people's reactions and so on and so on. Okay. Because you can, the interesting thing comes when you can be free in your mind. So we say somebody's like a free in their mind, but they're external situation doesn't reflect that. That's where we have a problem, right? So you can have somebody who considers themselves free in their mind in a jail cell.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're right. It's that, but it's also more than that.
Yeah.
It's a mindset, but it's also more than a mindset. I like that.